again, that's not something which has been shown to be previously associated with presidential effectiveness, where that fearless dominance has been.
Yeah.
But it is predictive of sort of getting into trouble during your term of office.
Mark, thank you for that diagnosis. That's Professor Mark Wilson on the panel. Someone's sent me their Trump theory. June 2013, the Clintons meet with Trump in secret. They offer him $20 billion to run for president. Trump wins the Republican nomination. August 2016, he gets a text from Hillary and begins to go off message.
They really have sent it in, haven't they? I can see you
plausible
reading
so
off
far.
his paper. Yeah.
September 2016, at the first presidential debate, he wears a tinfoil hat and claims aliens assassinated President Kennedy. There you go.
I like it.
Now, a couple of things probably time to talk about before we go. Koorau is to get a Richie McCaw statue, as we know. A Koorau Museum Committee initiative to acknowledge the outstanding rugby career of our local Koorau lad by Oamaru sculptor Don Patterson. It'll be really early next year. He says that little small concept model you can see online was created quickly and does not reflect the intended quality of the final product. Would you stop as you passed by and have a quiet moment?
I wouldn't, but my nephews would have a million selfies with it.
They had a statue. We did the Alps to Ocean bike ride that stopped at Koorau early this year, and there was a really big sort of, I think, 3 times life size construction. It was a giant blown up poster of Richie, and yes, we did all stop, and we did stand alongside his legs and take photos of each other. So Koorau's onto something.
I think it probably is.
It must be.
Will you go and see the movie? I mean, how much do you revere Richie? Will you go and see the movie?
I saw the shorts last night, and I think I said to Kathy, or Kathy said to me, I can't remember which way, I didn't think I'd really wanted to see any more, but it's really got me intrigued.
Are you going to go, Stephen?
Well, I think I certainly wouldn't say no. If it was convenient and friends were going, yes, I probably would, because it looked as if it was an examination of his leadership style, and that interests me. I mean, for the same reasons we've just been talking about Trump, I think politics and leadership often draws some pretty odd personalities, people who take leadership to work out their own personal demons in a way that is, highly committing and forces them to confront them and deal with problems. And I don't suspect for one moment that's him, but I am interested in how he led the All Blacks.
Curious.
Yeah, that's interesting. The leading businessman Roshan Naria has set up the New Zealand People's Party. You may have seen this today. It wants tough action on crime and assaults. It's the first New Zealand political party dedicated to immigrants that will contest any by-election in Mount Roskill if Phil Goff becomes Mayor of Auckland. The NZPP also wants immigration policies letting international students and migrants settle more quickly into New Zealand life. This is a long bow to draw at this stage, but there have been voices out of South Auckland wanting more Pacific representation bolted onto the superstructure, which we were talking about before. Stephen, how will this square with the hitherto unchallenged notion of a governing biculture? What are your thoughts on the political road ahead here?
I think it's really surprising that Maori didn't demand about 10 years ago that immigration be a much more considered and planned thing, because there's no doubt it's not going... The current model, which is an abortion of our notion of democracy and local government, will not survive the next generation born to the 23% Asian and the Polynesians and others. It's such an odd model, and it doesn't have any mechanisms for merit, for ensuring it's not corrupt or ensuring it's useful. So that'll go. But it certainly, a party of immigrants in the current situation just means they'll neutralise their votes.
How do you mean neutralise the vote? Sorry.
Well, they wouldn't have any chance of gaining representation, so it just means that the votes that would otherwise be distributed amongst parties that might be represented in power will simply be lost.
They could be kingmakers, though.
Only if they get a representative. Our system, proportional representation, doesn't give you anything unless you pass a threshold or have a seat.
Very good, and thank you for coming on today. Alan, I didn't give you time for the last words.
Oh no, since when does that stop me? I don't know enough about the new party, but in general I don't like the idea of separatist politics and things like that.
All right, thank you. Alan Reid, Stephen Franks, John Campbell on the way.
Kia ora everyone, I'm John Campbell on behalf of our excellent team. Haere mai, welcome to Checkpoint on RNZ National. Tau te mai rā e hoa mā, hei kōrero kei te haere, hei kaupapa kei te karawhiua. Tonight.com, live streaming, unprecedented, but what does it mean as a precedent? Havelock North, we're live at the public meeting there, serious overcrowding in South Auckland, not in homes but in schools. Cyber ransoming, is it a thing and should we take it seriously? Eliza McCartney home, back at school and smiling so hard her jaw hurts. Helen Clark's bid for Secretary General plus Gene Wilder's stolen cows and a dairy robbery where the owners seriously do fight back. All of that and more coming up tonight, but first Katrina Batten with RNZ News.
Kia ora, good evening. A public meeting on the Havelock North water emergency is about to get underway. As new figures show, even more people got the Campylobacter infection than previously thought. The total of nearly 5,200 who fell ill is more than a third of the town's population of 14,000. Peter Fowler reports.
The Hawke's Bay District Health Board says there is currently no one in hospital with the infection and the emergency appears to be over. It says medical staff will discuss people's ongoing health concerns at this evening's meeting. Regional and district council staff will also be on hand, but one thing they won't be able to tell the meeting is how the water supply was contaminated. That's still a mystery. In Havelock North, Peter Fowler.
A cancer patient given just 2 days to live 5 months ago is calling on Pharmac to publicly fund Keytruda for cancers other than melanoma. Len Pene, who has mesothelioma, was told in April chemotherapy wasn't working and his only other option was Keytruda. He was given 2 days to live, but 5 months later his tumours have shrunk significantly and he's back at work. Pharmac now funds Keytruda for melanoma patients but not for other cancer patients. Mr Pene has spent thousands of his own money funding the drug but says Pharmac should step up and pay for it instead. And you can hear more from Mr Pene on Checkpoint shortly. The police deny they could have stopped a brawl outside a Mangere East fast food restaurant sooner. A witness, Roger Fowler, says he saw an unusually large group of students gathering across the road from the Massey Road KFC yesterday afternoon, so his staff called the police. He says they were astonished when the police turned up and then left again, only to return in force 45 minutes later to break up the brawl. The area commander, Jason Hewitt, acknowledges concerns were raised about the large group.
So a unit was dispatched, there was no fighting at that point, a number of groups were spoken to, and then there was nothing more that could be done at that time.
Jason Hewitt says it seems a fight between two people escalated. 2 17-year-old youths have been charged with disorderly behaviour and possessing weapons, and 3 15-year-old boys have been referred to youth aid. An Auckland principal whose school has converted its kitchen and library into classrooms says the city's housing crisis is to blame. From next term, Clendon Park School in Manurewa will also be teaching a group of new entrants in the staff room. Its principal, Sue Dawson, says the pressure stems from overcrowding in the local community, where it's common for several families to live in a single house.
Often at the same property, another family's living in a garage. The overcrowding in our community is just unbelievable, and that's why kids are pouring in.
Sue Dawson, the Ministry of Education, says 3 temporary classrooms will be up by April and it's investigating other options for providing more space by the end of the year. The public are being warned about the rise of a new kind of cyber attack known as cyber ransoming or ransomware. The minister responsible for the country's spy agency, Chris Finlayson, says he recently heard about the first New Zealand case he's aware of. The head of the GCSB, Andrew Hampton, says about 900 different types of cyber attack come to the agency's attention each month, and there are 2 kinds in particular.
Firstly, credential harvesting, which is someone going into your system and trying to steal your password, for example, or ransomware. What ransomware is when someone locks down your system and asks you or demands that you pay a fee in order to free it up.
Andrew Hampton of the GCSB. Victoria has become the first Australian state to permanently ban fracking. Its government says the risks of the gas extraction technique outweigh any benefits. The state premier, Daniel Andrew, says the ban will protect the reputation of Victoria's agriculture sector and alleviate farmers' concerns about environmental and health risks.
This is about making a fundamental choice to put farmers and our clean, green brand first.
Daniel Andrew. The onshore exploration of coal seam gas has also been banned, but offshore gas exploration will continue. To sport, and the New Zealand batsmen may not be able to save the second test against South Africa at Centurion. The home side will start day 4 on 105 for 6 in their second innings with a lead of 372 runs. Bowler Doug Bracewell believes it won't be hard to get the remaining wickets, but with the pitch deteriorating, the Black Caps batsmen will also struggle.
As it showed, it's quite a tough surface to bat on. Even at the moment, it's going up and down a little bit. So yeah, it's always going to be a challenge batting last on it. But at the moment, we're focused on getting 4 wickets and hopefully bowling South Africa out in the morning.
Doug Bracewell. Play resumes in Pretoria at 8 o'clock. Meanwhile, the controversial pink ball will feature in first-class matches in New Zealand this summer, with several day-night fixtures scheduled as part of the Plunket Shield season. New Zealand plays its inaugural pink ball home test against England in 2018. Novak Djokovic has opened his defence of his US Open tennis title with a 4-set win over Poland's Jerzy Janowicz. Though the victory raised new concerns about his fitness. A trainer was called on to work on Djokovic's forearm during the match, and he could be seen grimacing while hitting shots. The former All Black Leon MacDonald is joining his former Super Rugby side, the Crusaders, as an assistant coach. MacDonald, who will remain the Tasman provincial head coach, has signed a 2-year contract with the Crusaders. That's the news.
Goodbye to a Hollywood funny man.
I don't know if you ever heard of me before, but I used to be called the Waco Kid.
Life on Mars.
When they went outside during the mission, they had to wear spacesuits. And this was the first time that they were able to walk outside the habitat in a year and feel the wind on their faces and smell the lava.
A signal from outer space.
What's producing this radio signal? Is it something natural or is it something unnatural, which is to say, an alien society?
Out of This World morning reports, weekdays from 6. Then on 9 to noon, MedSafe responds to growing concerns over surgical mesh. And after 10, geologist Jim Richards on chasing the biggest gold rushes in some of the world's wildest places. Join me, Catherine Ryan, on 9 to noon after morning report on RNZ National.
Met Service weather through to midnight tomorrow. Northland a few showers, mostly fine tomorrow. Auckland to Wellington, including Coromandel Peninsula, Bay of Plenty and the Central High Country, fine apart from areas of low cloud or fog inland tomorrow morning. Gisborne to Waitarapa, cloudy periods and isolated showers, clearing south of Wairoa tomorrow morning and elsewhere in the afternoon. Nelson, Marlborough and Canterbury, also central and north Otago, fine apart from cloudy areas morning and night. For Dunedin, Clutha and Southland, but not Stewart Island, cloudy periods and a few showers retreating to the south coast tonight, then clearing tomorrow morning. For Stewart Island and Fiordland, cloudy periods and a few showers. Bulla and Westland, cloudy periods tomorrow with isolated showers. And the Chatham Islands, cloudy periods. It's coming up to 5:09.
Thanks, Katrina. Kim.com has won his bid to live stream on YouTube, although with a 20-minute delay, his High Court appeal against extradition. The streaming will start tomorrow. There's no precedent for this in New Zealand. While the Pike River hearings were live streamed, that was an inquiry, not a court case. Lawyers for the US government opposed it, arguing it could contaminate potential jurors should .com and his 3 co-accused go to trial in the US. Other arguments against live streaming court have previously centred upon protecting witness identity and concerns that people being cross-examined might be intimidated or play to the camera. But this is an appeal. There are no witnesses, only lawyers mounting legal arguments. Here's Dr. Bill Hodge, Professor of Law at the University of Auckland.
To my knowledge, it is a precedent in that live streaming has not been exercised in a New Zealand courtroom. The New Zealand judiciary have been, shall we say, conservative about this, I think rightly so, because they would think we don't want to turn a trial or an appeal into a circus. It's not about the performers, it's about the submissions on law and facts. And we don't want people playing up to the cameras. But on the other hand, I'm totally in support of justice being transparent, justice being seen to be done. You go back to the fundamental statement, which everybody quotes, they don't know where it came from a judge in 1922, that it's of fundamental importance that justice should not only be done, but should manifestly and undoubtedly be seen to be done. So all Kim.com is doing here is saying, hey, I want this to be seen, and I can't fault him for that.
Dr. Bill Hodge. David Harvey is an internet law expert. He was the original district court judge in the .com extradition case. He stepped down after making a joke about the US while delivering a paper on copyright law at an internet conference. Having written the book on internet law in New Zealand, he's now director of the NZ Centre for ICT Law at the University of Auckland. If there aren't hiccups, and more on those shortly, he says the live streaming is a good thing. But because this is an extradition appeal rather than a trial...
I don't know that you can say that it's actually a precedent, other than that in the future people will say, well, look, it's been done before. But if this goes well, if it goes without a hiccup, if in fact it means that the public is better informed as to the way in which the court conducts its business, which is what open justice is all about, then other courts are probably going to be a little bit more sympathetic to the idea of a live stream.
You say if it goes without hiccups. What might a hiccup be? In other words, in order for this to work, in order for it to continue, and in order for it to happen again, what needs to not happen?
Okay, well, the first hiccup that you're going to have, if there's going to be a hiccup, is going to be a technological one. Because as I understand it, and again, this is an as I understand it thing, the stream, in fact, is going to be filmed. The digital stream is going to be pumped through the Wi-Fi system that they have at the court and then out onto YouTube. Now, you know, the Wi-Fi system may pack up. There may be all sorts of difficulties from a technical point of view in getting the stream to YouTube and from there on. As I understand the judge's order, he has said that the live stream can go out, but it's not to be archived, because there was some concern, I think, that was expressed on the part of the United States that some of the material that's going to be discussed in the course of this appeal could well result in jury contamination if the matter goes to trial in the United States. That's assuming the extradition is successful. But the reality of it is that the length of time between now and likely trial, and this is assuming, of course, that the extradition goes on, is going to be so great that memories will fail and say, oh, yes, I remember something like that. But if it's archived, then, of course, they'll be able to Google it, you see, and they'll be able to bring it up the day before the trial and have a look at it, or even worse, during the course of the trial and have a look at it, and then you've got a problem. And I've dealt with this in an article that I wrote some years ago about the impact of Google and juries.
Gosh, this is fascinating, isn't it?
Oh, it's good stuff, yeah. The thing is, it's great because it means that the courts are using really up-to-the-minute technology to enable people to see the business of the court. I mean, it isn't just high-profile murder trials and all of that sort of thing. There are other important things that are happening in the court on a daily basis that the public doesn't often get to see. And in that respect, this is, you know, an important part of the court's business that is being broadcasting, and it can only be a good thing for the system of justice and open justice in New Zealand. And you know, John, New Zealand is quite unique in the sense that we can do this. There aren't a lot of other countries that'll do it. England doesn't do it. Australia doesn't do it. So, you know, it's very, very innovative, and something that New Zealand has got a little bit of stick for from some overseas jurists.
That's David Harvey. Let's stay online. A new kind of cyber attack is reportedly on the rise in New Zealand, cyber ransoming. The minister in charge of the country's spy agencies says he was recently told about what he believes is the first case here of cyber ransoming, where hackers seize files or intellectual property and demand money for their return. Here's our political editor, Jane Patterson.
Cyber threats to New Zealand were raised several times during the course of the inaugural National Security Conference hosted by Massey University in Auckland. Chris Finlayson, the minister responsible for the electronic spy agency, the GCSB, and the Security Intelligence Service, says the days when security could be viewed within a country's physical borders are gone. He says while terrorist attacks always pose a risk, cyber attacks are a major threat to government agencies and New Zealand companies.
And the effect on a New Zealand company of a cyber intrusion and what one gets these days, cyber ransoming, is actually a very serious matter.
He says the first case of cyber ransom he found out about was raised during a recent visit to members of the Muslim community in Christchurch.
And talking about some of these issues, and someone stood up and said he had been a victim of cyber ransoming.
So can you tell us about cyber ransoming? What happens?
What happens is they get into your system, they may take a whole lot of your files and say, pay me $20,000 or you won't be getting them back.
The head of the GCSB, Andrew Hampton, says generally cyber attacks are on the rise.
Each month, the GCSB becomes aware of 900 different malware signatures or different types of attacks. We become aware of this through information we get from our partners as well as what we're seeing in New Zealand. Also within any 1 month, up to 7 of the agencies who we support or the organisations we support are suffering some sort of intrusion.
He says there are 2 new kinds of attack in particular.
Firstly, credential harvesting, which is someone going into your system and trying to steal your password, for example, or ransomware. What ransomware is when someone locks down your system and asks you or demands that you pay a fee in order to free it up.
Anthony Smith is the Assessments Manager for the National Assessment Bureau, which analyses intelligence, diplomatic and open source material and advises the government. He says cyber attacks are absolutely an area of focus for the New Zealand government as they are around the world.
We've seen lots of examples internationally of countries, of companies that come under attack from state and non-state actors. We know that any developed economy will have literally thousands of attacks every hour, every minute probably. This is a huge issue that affects many countries around the world.
Any individuals or small companies targeted by cyber attacks are encouraged to contact the internet service provider and law enforcement agencies like the police. In Auckland for Checkpoint, Jane Patterson.
An Auckland man diagnosed with rare asbestos-induced cancer and given just 2 days to live 5 months ago is calling on Pharmac to look at publicly funding Keytruda for some cancers other than melanoma, including the very rare one he has. Len Pene's father died from asbestos cancer after working at James Hardie as a foreman. Len, who used to go to work with his dad in the school holidays, was diagnosed with the same cancer called mesothelioma late last year and has been self-funding Keytruda since April. He says following his diagnosis, his prognosis was grim.
They said that I had to go and have chemo, which they did do. They gave me one lot of chemo that didn't work. And then we tried another type of chemo, and that actually sent me to hospital. And I ended up with a mild stroke and a heart attack. And so we stopped the treatment there. And then after that, we ended up. My specialist said there's nothing that they can do for me anymore. But if I like to take Keytruda, I'm welcome to it. But I had to pay for it, so I did. I paid for it.
Len, forgive me for butting in then. When your specialist said there was nothing more they could do for you,
everything was failing. They had a scan, and everything was failing. They actually gave me 2 days to live.
They actually said those words to you. You've got a couple of days left.
2 days to live. But before that, I got that first a lot of Keytruda. Then I come home to actually die. The first night I woke up that was all right. Second night I woke up. Then the third night when I woke up, I says, bugger this. I was supposed to be, this is what they told me. So I started eating again. And little did I know that Keytruda was working its miracle.
So you had been told you had 2 days to live.
Yes.
Obviously, you'd gone beyond those 2 days.
Yes.
The nurse looks for where your tumour was and senses that it's got smaller. You go into your oncologist, and what does he say?
He said, we'll put you through a scan. And it actually started turning around on that. It was Anzac Day, I remember. And then he stuck me through a scan that showed 61% of shrinkage. And I've gone on from there. I have now had 7. I feel good. There's no pain. So that's where we sit now. And I've had 7 lots of Keytruda. And I have 1 more to go, and then I'm going to stop because they don't actually know the reaction to this because I'm the only one that's on it in New Zealand.
So then you say that's where it sits, but in fact you're not sitting, are you? You're back at work.
I'm just going into work after I finish talking to you.
So you're going to go back to work,
yeah.
and forgive me for putting this really bluntly, but in fact you were told you were going to be dead in April.
Actual fact, straight up.
So how are you paying for the Keytruda?
I'm buying it.
And what's it cost you?
8,500.
Every how many weeks? Is that 3 weeks?
3 weeks.
8.5 grand every 3 weeks. And you're a working man, Len. Where are you getting that money from?
Oh, I saved it.
Huh.
Terrible.
So after 7 Keytruda, 7 8s of 56, so you've paid over 60 grand on Keytruda so far?
Something like that.
And
I actually wrote in to ACC about getting that Keytruda because when I saw it on TV, I thought, oh, heck, it's here. Thank Christ, And I wrote in, my kids wrote in, nothing.
Because it's publicly funded for some cancers, but not your cancers.
No,
not your cancer.
Melanoma. But I'm the only one in New Zealand sitting here with my one, and that I need it.
So what would you like to say to Pharmac?
I've written a letter into Pharmac as well.
And what did you say to them?
Oh, my son usually does that, but we got denied from there too as well.
So as far as you're aware, you are the only person in New Zealand with this cancer caused by asbestos.
Yes.
Keytruda does seem really clearly to have worked for you because you were told you have 2 days to live in April and you are now alive and returning to work.
That's right, I'm doing everything.
Yeah, at the beginning of September, basically.
Yes.
But Pharmac is saying they're not funding it.
No, Pharmac is not funding it. They'll fund it if I had melanoma.
That's Len Penny. There's only a small number of people taking Keytruda who aren't being publicly funded. Merck Sharp and Dohme, the drug company that makes Keytruda, told us 30 people are self-funding Keytruda for a range of cancers. It says it's still generating clinical data for mesothelioma before it can be formally registered for public treatment. Coming up, 500 dairy cows stolen from a South Canterbury farm, gone, and the Napier dairy owners who took on their would-be robbers with a hockey stick and a table leg. We've got that coming up. Your feedback is very welcome. Email checkpoint@radionz.co.nz or text 2101. We love hearing from you. The Hawke's Bay District Health Board has confirmed 5,198 people have now fallen ill due to the water contamination crisis. A public meeting is due to start at the Riverbend Bible Church in Pukahu. Our reporter Alex Ashton is there. Kia ora, Alex. What sort of crowd has turned up? It hasn't started yet. How many people are there already?
Kia ora, John. No, it hasn't started yet. We're about probably 10 minutes from starting. Over 100 here so far in the seats. You can't see them, but they go right to the back there, so they're definitely expecting a crowd. One of them is Sam Jackman, and Sam, you're from the Business Association here.
Yes, I am.
What are you hoping comes from tonight?
Oh, I think the most important thing is that it's a good idea to get the community together and let Council DHB explain the situation, what did actually happen, and how we're getting through this and what needs to happen
Yeah,
to
because asking
get us through
around,
this.
people still don't know what happened. People are still really confused.
Well, and I think that that's part of the issues that will be addressed tonight. Council have been working, I know, feverishly to work out what the problem is, where it went wrong in terms of contamination, and what now needs to be addressed in order to put things right and get the community back on its feet again.
Yeah, do you think much is actually going to come out of tonight?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you, but some explanation and actually getting it out to a good group like this tonight within the community. And there's a lot of affected people within our community that did suffer a lot in terms of health and their well-being and all that sort of thing. And I think that they'll get a decent idea as to what Council is doing, what Council has been doing, and what our future looks like in terms of our pureness of water.
Yeah, you weren't sick yourself, were you?
No, I live 10k out in the country, so I get my water off the roof, and I have a very good filtration system. Right.
All right. So as I say, John, we're about to get off here, and we'll be coming back after 6 once it's underway, and we'll let you know what happens.
Thank you very much. Alex Ashton live from the meeting. As you can see, if you're watching, we have a live shot there. If anything of great moment happens, we will cross back to it live immediately. Otherwise, we will rejoin Alex after 6. A father and son who fought off masked robbers with a table leg and hockey stick say they no longer feel safe working alone at night in their Napier dairy. CTV footage shows Manmohan Singh being attacked by the robbers armed with a claw hammer and a crowbar on Friday night. Mr Singh fights back with a table leg before his son Sukshinder comes to his aid with a hockey stick. Mr Singh's English isn't the best, but his daughter-in-law Sonu Singh stood with him in the dairy and described to our reporter Alex Ashton again what happened.
It was 5:40. 2 people came in the shop with all black, covered mask, gloves, shoes and all thing, and they just come in and attacked. Haven't demanded anything. So in response to them, we just defend them with a hockey stick and one of the baseball.
So why did you choose those? Was that just what was there?
Because a couple of days ago, one or two of cops have already arrived here, and they told us that these type of happenings are happening in the Napier and Hastings. So be alert. So for our defense mechanism, we have just keep a hockey stick over there, not just to beat, just to protect ourselves from such type of bad peoples. Yeah, just that.
What were the people trying to take that came in?
They actually didn't demand anything, but most probably the money in the till and the cigarettes, because they are too expensive nowadays. Nothing else.
So was anyone injured?
No one injured.
And is that because do you think that's because there was a hockey stick there?
Actually, our main purpose was not that to beat them. Yeah, we just want to show them that if you are going to attack on us, we have some safety measures for our protection. That's all. If we have to beat them, we might catch one of them. Yeah, but we haven't do anything like that.
Has this ever happened before?
No, not this type of scary incidents. Sometimes, the little kids, naughty kids, they just grab the lollies from the front counters and just ran away. That is different. But this was first time. It was a scary moment.
Do you feel safe working in here?
After that incident, I said no. Because, after this incident, one person is not safe, especially in the early mornings and late evenings.
So 2 people on at all times. Are you going to keep the hockey stick out?
Depends. After such type of incidents we hear from other sources, then I think we should keep. But if such type of happenings will be stopped, then that is of no use.
5:28 on Checkpoint. Olympic pole vaulting bronze medalist Eliza McCartney was a very special guest of honour this morning at Belmont Intermediate, her old school in Auckland's Takapuna. The pupils were delighted to see her as they sat in the school assembly hall where Eliza herself sat only 7 years ago. Her rise literally to 4.8 metres and a bronze medal, and more generally as the sudden recipient of considerable public admiration and affection, is still a source of wonder for the 19-year-old herself. After the assembly finished, I sat down with her in the Belmont Intermediate School Hall. Eliza, have you been home yet?
No, I have not. Not for like 2 months.
So did you just land this morning?
I did, only a few hours ago.
And how many? I've been told by Scott out there that I'm interview number 7.
Oh, okay. I haven't been counting. There's been a few.
And probably interview number 700 since Rio, and yet I've been watching you. The same joy and delight and sense of possibility. It's a lovely quality, and it shone in Rio. You were so happy, weren't you?
I was. That's what I feel so proud about, is that one, that I just enjoyed it so much, and two, that I genuinely can say I did everything I could, and that's not something you can say too often. I think I just did absolutely everything I could and I enjoyed it, so that's what I'm most happiest about.
And to enjoy it on that stage, you know, I mean, there is no more global stage for a pole vaulter, for a 19-year-old athlete to be on than the Olympics. And you didn't get overwhelmed in any way, did you?
I guess not. I think I did quite well there. I've just had a crazy year this year. My technique has just broken through, and that's why there's been such a huge jump in the heights that I've been achieving. But yeah, this year's been crazy. It's just building and building, and suddenly everyone's just so excited, and it's just awesome.
You talk about the heights, 4.8, which is a PB, and that's what you did at Rio. It's fantastic to do your PB at the Olympics, isn't it?
Yeah.
But there's a sense you can go higher, isn't there?
Hopefully, yes. I mean, I wasn't on my full run-up. I was basically on a full run-up. It was what worked at the time for this year, so that's what we went with. But I certainly can go on to a longer run-up. I certainly can get onto bigger poles, and I've not nailed the technique whatsoever. So I think it's just so exciting, especially with Jeremy. He's just such a wonder coach that I think hopefully we'll be pushing more heights soon.
Jeremy's standing out there. You went to Jeremy when you were 14 and said, I'd like to give this pole vaulting a go.
Yeah, I guess so. It seems like a long time ago now, but I guess it was only about 6 years.
Jeremy, by the wonders of editing, we have just left our interview with Eliza mid-interview and ducked out to grab you because she's talking about you with such gratitude and affection. Do you remember when she arrived as a 14-year-old and said, I wouldn't mind giving pole vaulting a go?
Yeah, absolutely. It's 6 years ago now, and you know, she's come on so well. You know, she was a skinny little kid back then, and she had great feel for the event.
She's got character, hasn't she? I mean, this is a kind of a Cinderella story. You know, she's come from nowhere in terms of the public sense of her, and she's got bronze in Rio, but actually there have been tough times, right? There have been times where she's had to really work hard to overcome things.
Yeah, absolutely. 2 years ago she was struggling to take off in pole vault. There was a few things that were happening that, you know, just were a little bit out of her control, but she's worked through those and look where she's at now.
Yeah, it's pretty great, isn't it?
It is amazing, yeah. It's been 6 years, it's been a journey, and she's just been such an awesome athlete to work with.
Eliza, I was looking on your Instagram and there's this beautiful thing, heart thumping. Was it? Could you feel it? Could you absolutely feel it?
That's 100% true. You know, I was actually lying in bed that night, like trying to sleep, and I was thinking, like, that's just all I can remember is that my heart was just, you know, you get those moments where you can just feel your whole body thumping with your heart, and that while I was watching the Australian girl do her last attempt, my heart was just going crazy. That's all I can remember, just going, oh my gosh, I don't even know if I should watch, like, I don't even know what to do right now.
And you were looking out in the crowd in Rio, Brazil, and you were seeing your family there, right?
Yes, just so special. And even the qualifier, same thing. And I can hear them shouting. That's what's so amazing, just having everybody important to me right there. My family, my coach, my whole support team, so my physio, my doctor, everybody was just there. And that's what's so awesome, to share it with everybody.
What could you hear them shouting?
I could just, I don't know, just everything. Just go Eliza, and just and hear them clapping and cheering when I jumped. And every time, I think you can see it when I clear a jump, I'd jump off, I fall on the mat and I'd look straight at the crowd. I'm like, yay! Straight looking at my family.
What are you going to do for the next few days? I mean, you've been so generous with the media and with the people of New Zealand, but you need to stop now, don't you? Actually, just need to have a little bit of a break.
Yeah, my cheeks are really sore from smiling so much. I think what I'm going to do is just go and see everybody. I mean, I'm such a home girl. I love being in New Zealand, and I haven't seen everybody in so long. This is the longest I've ever been away from New Zealand and my home before, so that's what I'm really looking forward to. The next couple of days is taking some time off and going to see everybody.
Enjoy it, Eliza, and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Coming up on Checkpoint, Helen Clark vows to stay in the race for the UN top job. Straw poll has her 7th. A South Auckland school says it's so overcrowded it will be forced to turn its staff room into a classroom for new entrants next term. And America remembers Gene Wilder. Well, I guess the world does too. Nona with business, but first Katrina Batten with the RNZ 5:35 headlines.
A cancer patient given just 2 days to live 5 months ago is calling on Pharmac to publicly fund Keytruda for cancers other than melanoma. Len Penne, who has mesothelioma, was told in April chemotherapy wasn't working and his only other option was Keytruda. Mr Penne has spent thousands of his own money funding the drug, and 5 months later his tumours have shrunk significantly and he's back at work. Pharmac now funds Keytruda for melanoma patients but not for other cancer patients. The police deny they could have stopped a brawl outside a Mangere East fast food restaurant sooner. A witness, Roger Fowler, says he saw a large group of students gathering across the road from the Massey Road KFC yesterday afternoon, so his staff called the police. He says they were astonished when the police turned up and then left again. The area commander, Jason Hewitt, says the officers decided nothing more could be done at that time. An Auckland principal says the city's housing crisis has led to overcrowding at her school. From next term, Clendon Park School in Manurewa will also be teaching a group of new entrants in the staff room because all the other space has been used. Its principal, Sue Dawson, says in the local community it's common for several families to live in a single house and all send their children to the same school. A report going before Christchurch City councillors this week shows drinking water has been contaminated with E. coli 125 times in the past 4 years. Like Havelock North, which is still in the grip of a contamination crisis, Christchurch's drinking water is untreated. The public are being warned about the rise of a new kind of cyber attack known as cyber ransoming. It happens when attackers lock down someone's information and demand money to free it up. Those are the headlines. I'll be back at 6 with more news, sport and weather.
Thanks very much, Katrina. Overcrowded schools and Helen Clark's UN bid coming up next. But first, business news with Nona Peltier. Nona, the company reporting season has wrapped up.
It has, thank goodness. It's been 3 weeks of every day, lots of company reports to digest. But, you know, we have Mark Lister from Craig's Investment Partners. He crunched the numbers for us. He says that 4 out of 5 of the companies that reported met expectations from the market, and that with average profit growth of 7.2%, which was, you know, pretty strong.
Yeah, so the average include, I mean, we've been talking about a couple who've gone way back, so 7% average up.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And I mean, yesterday we had Auckland Airport. I mean, today, once again, they were up another 3%, and that led our whole market up.
Share price up 3%.
Yeah, up to $7.51. They had a very strong result. That's a very large company, and that's lifted the market today. The New Zealand NZX Top 50 Index rose more than 0.25%. That's up 21 points to 7,388. And the New Zealand dollar was steady, despite some concern that's emerging around the world that maybe the U.S. Federal Reserve won't raise interest rates in September.
Hold on a sec. These are the markets that went up on the strength of the fact that they will raise them. And yesterday, shot up. Right. Today, they're thinking maybe not, and they go down.
Maybe not.
Where is David Longy to pass comment on this?
I'll tell you. Anyways, the New Zealand dollar is steady at 72.5 US cents, 95.7 Australian, and 55.4 pence.
Nona Peltzer, thank you very much indeed. Helen Clark is vowing to stay in the race for the UN's top job, despite failing to make headway against her rivals in that third straw poll. Portugal's former Prime Minister has again topped the 15-member Security Council poll, with Ms Clark stuck at 7th place out of the 10 candidates. Here's our Deputy Political Editor, Chris Bramwell.
Helen Clark's campaign team tweeted after the poll this morning, thanking the Security Council and adding La Lucha Continua, which is Spanish for the fight continues. New York correspondent Lorna Shattuck says Miss Clark clearly intends to continue in the fight to replace outgoing UN chief Ban Ki-moon.
She lost support between the first and the second rounds of the straw polls, but she didn't lose any more this time round, so perhaps she's interpreting that positively. But I think it would have been surprising to see Helen Clark drop out of the race before the UN General Assembly, which takes place towards the end of September here in New York.
The Prime Minister, John Campbell, says Helen Clark has invested a lot in the campaign and shouldn't pull out now.
This is where it's going to get a little bit more interesting. It looked to us like there was a bit more tactical voting. One of the Eastern Europeans has gone up to number 2 now, so you are seeing some change there. All of this is really just the preliminary sort of straw poll voting. It doesn't really count until you get to the point where countries, particularly the P5, start really being able to have significant influence.
Mr Key says New Zealand officials are continuing to push Helen Clark's case.
I'm not disheartened by it. I think, just in the very brief, text exchange I've had with Helen, I think she's happy that things have stabilised now. She's not unrealistic. She's got a hell of a lot of work to do if she is going to get over the line, and she's got to start moving back up, but she's got a bit of time to do that.
William Pace is the director of the One for 7 Billion campaign, which is pushing for a more open and transparent process to elect the Secretary-General. He says there's still strong support for a female to head the UN and also for regional rotation.
So I think while former Prime Minister Guterres is clearly the front runner in the 3 straw polls to date, I don't think you can conclude that it's anywhere near over in terms of the final recommendation from the Council and appointment by the General Assembly.
Labour's Foreign Affairs spokesperson David Shearer says the front-runner Antonio Guterres has a great reputation, but because he's from Western Europe and Russia wants an Eastern European candidate, he may not hang on.
What has been interesting in this latest poll is Miroslav Lajčák, who's the Slovakian former foreign minister, who's come from 10th into 2nd, which just goes to show you, the degree of which the votes are moving around at the moment.
It's not yet known when the next straw poll will be or whether the next one will be at the stage where coloured ballot papers are used for the 5 permanent members of the Security Council. If it does, that will give a clear indication of which candidates could be vetoed by the P5, and the race is likely to narrow at that point. Atu i te whare Pārimata mō Checkpoint, ko Chris Bramwell tēnei.
Lawrence Yull speaking in Havelock North. He's opened with an apology. We will be back there with our reporter live after 6. Children in the poorer suburbs of Auckland not only have to contend with overcrowding at home sometimes, where it's common to have 2 or 3 families living in one house, perhaps another in a garage, but they're also feeling the squeeze at school. Clendon Park School, a Decile 1 school in Mangurewa, South Auckland, has faced such rapid growth in the past 4 years. It's already converted all of its spare space, including the library, whare and kitchen, into classrooms. And from next term, a group of 5-year-olds will start their school life in the staff room. Anusha Bradley went to the school and filed this report.
Tasi Lokeni teaches her Samoan bilingual class in a room that used to be a dedicated English as a second language room. She says that means students who need extra help now miss out.
They don't get the resources that they need, the one-to-one that they actually need with our ESOL teacher, which is me.
It's actually quite a small room, isn't it?
It's really small. I've got 7 and 8 students. There's 24 of them. A lot of them are nearly taller than me. This is the space that we have to manage with.
Every bit of available space, including the school's library, whare kai and technology room, have already been converted into classrooms. And from next term, Principal Sue Dawson says 35 children starting their school life will do so in the staff room.
When you're desperate, you do anything to house your children properly. So the staff room is the next best place. Unfortunately, my office and the boardroom are far too small and have no facilities, so the staff room is next.
Sue Dawson says it's a symptom of a much wider social problem.
We have a number of families who live in a house, 2 to 3 families. They each have a room in the house. Then we have often at the same property a garage. Another family's living in a garage. At the back of the property there could be a sleep out or a caravan or several caravans, but the overcrowding in our community is just unbelievable. And that's why kids are pouring in.
At Clendon Park School, art classes and science experiments are held outside. The library can only be visited when the class in that room is out, and technology is no longer in the curriculum because that room too is now a classroom. Deputy Principal Dudley Adams often teaches Māori in the class housed in the whare kai. He says this means the children miss out on activities that are supposed to be done there.
Unfortunately, it impacts on our other programs because the whare kai is not available for what it was designed for. They're missing out on that. So it's better than having overcrowded classrooms. So those are the 2 options really we have.
Sue Dawson says the Ministry of Education has known for 4 years the school needs at least 5 more classrooms, but little action's been taken. Within hours of RNZ visiting Clendon Park School this morning, the ministry phoned Sue Dawson to say 3 temporary classrooms will be in place by April next year. In a statement, the ministry says it's looking at other options to provide more room by the end of this year, and 6 new classrooms will be built in the next couple of years.
It's looking great. I think we're on a roll to finishing.
Back in Tasi Lokini's classroom, a couple of years is a long time to wait.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's not so much for me, but for the students. I mean, like, there's so many things that we could do within our classrooms. Just, a lot of things that we can't actually do in the room. Like, for instance, these kids, they love drama. We can't really do that. We don't have the space to do that kind of thing in our rooms. So, that's just one of the frustrations.
Principal Dawson is cautiously optimistic. She says the ministry's promised things before and nothing has happened. For Checkpoint, Anusha Bradley.
Fears are growing that the Kiwi tradition of being billeted out while on school sports and cultural exchanges may soon become a thing of the past. Devon Intermediate in New Plymouth this month canned its annual sports exchange with Rotorua's Mokuaia Intermediate, blaming the Health and Safety Act, and other schools are considering a similar action. Our Taranaki reporter Robin Martin has more.
In its school newsletter, Devon Intermediate said changes to the Health and Safety Act meant that students could no longer be billeted and the cost for Mokuaia staff and students to stay elsewhere was too expensive. Associate Principal Conrad Hales says the move was initiated by Mokuaia, which was due to visit New Plymouth later this term.
We received notification from Mokuaia Intermediate that they would require us to fill out police vetting on our families for the billeting situation for the sports exchange. So from that point of view, we didn't have time to do that before the sports exchange actually took place.
Mr. Hales says the students involved are bitterly disappointed the exchange is not going ahead.
When we talk to students that have left the school and come back in years to come, they always remember their billets and that time, and quite a few of them remain quite close with those billets. So it's not just a sort of a three-day visit. It extends beyond that in terms of friendships and connections that they've built with the students of Rotorua.
Devon Intermediate's Board of Trustees is now reviewing the exchange with Mokuaia to see if it has any future. The president of the Secondary Principals Association, Patrick Walsh, says schools around the country are worried about the new health and safety legislation and the 2014 Vulnerable Children Act.
A number of principals and deputy principals have raised with me the fact that they are considering either cutting back or stopping altogether sports and cultural exchanges on the basis they think that those 2 acts require them to police vet billets. And because of the impracticality of that and the cost of it, they're considering not doing that.
Mr. Walsh says there is no legal requirement for volunteer billets to be police vetted, but schools are taking a safety-first approach because they are concerned about their liability and the potential risk to students. He says these fears put in jeopardy a system that has provided rich experiences for young people for decades.
I just would err on the side of caution and advise principals to think very carefully about it, because the billet situation is one which provides a wonderful experience for the young people in schools, and it's something that I wouldn't want to see diminished because people are being overzealous in the checking.
In a statement, the Ministry of Education's Head of Sector Enablement and Support, Steve Stewart, says the Vulnerable Children Act 2014 made sweeping changes to protect children.
It requires state-funded services and their contracted providers to safety check, vet and screen the children's workforce and have child protection policies to ensure those who work with vulnerable children are safe and competent.
Mr Stewart says this does not extend to volunteers, however.
Parents who volunteer to help out at school events are considered to be volunteers under the Act. Volunteers, as unpaid workers, are not required to be safety checked under the new VCA requirements. We do, however, encourage schools to safety check volunteers who are likely to be alone with children.
WorkSafe administers the Health and Safety in Work Act. A spokesperson for the regulator says there's nothing in the Act that precludes billeting, and this would be a policy decision for individual schools. Meanwhile, the Secondary School Principals Association will be seeking clarification about the issue from the Ministry of Education at a meeting next week. In New Plymouth, for Checkpoint, ko Robin Martin-Tene.
Coming up to 10 minutes to 6, a South Canterbury farming official says stealing 500 cows is like stealing the crown jewels. Complicated, but not impossible. Ryan O'Sullivan, who heads the dairy division of South Canterbury Federated Farmers, says the managers of the property from where the cows have vanished are very good operators, and so far it's a mystery as to how it might have happened. Here's Tracy Neal with the story so far.
Questions remain about how it might have been possible to siphon almost half of one farm's total dairy herd. Ryan O'Sullivan says the missing cows were ready to calve, which means they would have been in a paddock remote from the daily operations of the milking herd.
Your milking herd you've got on farm, you're dealing with twice a day. Your cows that are still due to calve, maybe on a different property in a runoff, they are being attended to on a daily basis. If someone really knew what they were doing, I'm just speculating here, but you could conceivably take small numbers regularly to, reduce that herd size without it being particularly noticeable.
Mr O'Sullivan says the mixed breed cows were worth between $1,400 and $1,600 each. He says it's a mystery how it wasn't noticed.
It's almost like stealing the crown jewels, the level of planning, execution that you would have to go to be able to carry that out without being caught is just, it's mind-boggling.
The Ashburton police say they have visited the property and have taken statements from people there. Senior Sergeant Scott Banfield says it's unlikely the theft of hundreds of animals could be completed at once, and is more likely the multiple thefts were carried out over a period of time. One of the farm's managers, Penny Saunders, handed media inquiries to spokesman Willie Lefferink. The Ashburton dairy farmer and former president of Mid-Canterbury Federated Farmers says the farm is owned by a corporation and the managers are devastated.
Absolutely, yes. Like cows is not like chickens or pigs. You get pretty, like you're emotionally attached to them. Even though it's big numbers, you still get attached to them, yes.
Mr Lefferink says it's hard to know where to begin looking for 500 cows.
500 cows is 12, 13 truck and trailer loads of cows. That's a big shift. And slowly, the people must notice that there's people walking cows on the road or I don't know whether they were in back or beyond, but, like in Canterbury, there's still people on the road, and it must be bloody difficult to just walk 500 cows away.
He says it's also difficult to comprehend how anyone with a large truck could operate under the radar.
Any trucking company, they would know where they're going, what they're doing, and there's certificates required. All these cows would have a tag in their ear, so if to make it tamper-proof, who would have 500 of those tags just to re-tag them,
Mr Lefferink understands the cows are not insured because insuring dairy cows is extremely expensive. He says they're worried it's a sign that cattle rustling that was rife in the area last December has started again.
The theft in the December period never got resolved, so that plays all in the back of our minds. Is there a big ring that's at work?
The police are now warning farmers to review their auditing systems. Scott Banfield says it's essential the community works with the police to help them solve the mystery. For Checkpoint, Tracy Neal.
Well, a public meeting is well underway at the Riverbend Bible Church in Pukahu near Havelock North to address concerns over the water contamination crisis. The Hawke's Bay District Health Board has confirmed 5,198 people have now fallen sick with the gastrobug. If you're watching on Freeview Channel 50 or live streaming on the RNZ website, about 200 people are at the meeting, and there's an extensive lineup of speakers. Hastings District Mayor Lawrence Yule, who opened the meeting by apologising, CEO Ross McLeod, Water Services Manager Brett Chapman, and representatives from the Regional Council, and Hawke's Bay's DHB CEO Kevin Snee, who you can see speaking right now. We'll go back there live with our reporter Alex Ashton to tell us what's happened so far after 6. Social media has lit up with tributes to the American actor and comedian Gene Wilder, who's died aged 83. His family says he died from complications from Alzheimer's disease at his home in Connecticut, perhaps best known for bringing Willy Wonka to the big screen. Wilder also featured in the Mel Brooks films Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein. The ABC's Zoe Daniel has this look back on his career.
A comic genius with pure imagination and uninhibited silliness. That was Gene Wilder.
Come with me and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look and you'll see into your imagination.
His first major film role was in 1968. The Producers, his first collaboration with filmmaker Mel Brooks, got him an Oscar nomination. His delightful combination of madness and mischief and twinkling blue eyes entertained a generation of children. 1974's Blazing Saddles satirised racism in America's Wild West. He had a great on-screen rapport with fellow comedian Richard Pryor. They appeared together repeatedly, including in 1980's Stir Crazy, where they played friends framed for a bank robbery. Like many stars, he grappled with balancing his personal life with his public persona, as described in this interview with Robert Osborne 3 years ago.
What a comic, what a funny guy, all that stuff, and I'm not. I'm really not, except in a comedy, in films. But I make my wife laugh once or twice in the house, but nothing special.
Gene Wilder was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in the late 80s. But his family says he died of complications from Alzheimer's. He'd had it for 3 years, but according to a statement, didn't want to reveal it to the children, who still greeted him as Willy Wonka from the original film of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. He simply couldn't bear the idea of one less smile in the world.
If you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Anything you want to do it. Want to change the world, there's nothing to it.
Mel Brooks has described Gene Wilder as one of the truly great talents of our time. He blessed every film with his magic.
Zoe Daniel with that report. Wildlife officials in Norway believe lightning from a powerful storm killed an entire herd of migrating reindeer, including 70 calves, in a remote area southwest of Oslo. Here's Diane Hodges.
A game warden making his rounds stumbled across these eerie images. Some 323 reindeer, including 70 calves, lying dead on the ground. Norwegian officials are taking samples from the carcasses to make sure, but they believe the animals were killed by lightning. They say it's not uncommon for that to happen, but it is unusual for storms to kill so many animals at one time. They say reindeer usually huddle together during storms, and that magnifies the effect of a lightning strike. The disaster occurred on the Hardangervidda mountain plateau. Approximately 10,000 reindeer migrate over an area of 8,000 square kilometers or 3,000 square miles on Hardangervidda, making it Norway's largest wild reindeer range, according to local media. It's not yet known whether the bodies will be removed or if they'll be left where they are.
That was in Norway. Back in New Zealand, September is tipped to feel more like summer than spring. This year's autumn was the warmest ever recorded, and NIWA says more records are set to tumble, with some areas expected to be 5 to 10 degrees warmer than average next month. Wow. Laura Bootham spoke to NIWA meteorologist Ben Nicol, who says the east coast of the country will be feeling the heat by the end of this week.
It's been a warm winter across New Zealand. We've had some rounds of record warmth, and here we are heading into September, and more of the same. First 2 days of spring may feel more like November or December, so enjoyable weather for some if you like some outdoor activities, but the drier weather does remain in the north of Canterbury, and they certainly need the rain there.
So what kind of record-breaking temperatures are we looking at?
So in the east of both islands, some places may exceed 20 Celsius, and some places may approach even 25 in the warmest places in the east, especially on Friday. But it may repeat itself a couple of times here in the first half of September. So a couple of rounds of this really warm, maybe late year, like December-like weather here early in the spring.
It's time to put the electric blankets away?
Yeah, as we go forward in time, the nights are going to be milder, and in the mornings when you head outside, maybe a lower frost risk than usual, which can be good for some of the lamb farmers as well. In parts of the country, you may have some of your warmest overnight September temperatures, so maybe you're not setting a record during the day, but at night you're failing to fall below a certain point, and that makes it the warmest overnight.
Canterbury has been suffering from drought, that is northern Canterbury. Does that look set to continue?
Yeah, look, I mean, places in northern Canterbury, some spots only 40 to 60% of their normal rainfall so far in 2016, and these types of winds, a firn wind, will contribute to that. So it looks like over the next, say, 15 days, there's little in the way of rainfall for the places that need it most, which certainly is an unfortunate aspect to the early spring warmth.
That's Ben Nicol talking to our reporter Laura Bootham. Ben is a meteorologist at Niwa. It's coming up to 6 o'clock. We've been talking over the pips lately, so let's give them the reverence that is their due. Bugger. Kia ora everyone, you are with Checkpoint on RNZ National on the radio as always, but we're also screening live on Freeview Channel 50 and streaming live on the RNZ website. However you're joining us, it's great to have you with us. Thank you. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, we're going back live to this public meeting at Havelock North. Our reporter Alex Ashton is there. An apology from the Mayor so far. We'll find out what other speakers have been saying. Will the water crisis sway Havelock North voters and voters in the wider area? Alex has been out asking them, is the water in Christchurch really a ticking time bomb? And more on the brawl outside the Mangere KFC. But before all of that, Katrina Batten with the RNZ News.
Ngamihi Nui, good evening. The Mayor of Hastings has apologised at a public meeting in Havelock North for what he called the misery of the contamination of the town's water supply. The meeting began a short time ago and is going on now. You can watch it live on our website rnz.co.nz. Lawrence Yule told the crowd the District Council failed to supply clean and safe water and no stone will be left unturned to find out how the water became contaminated. Before the meeting began, a Havelock North businessman, Sam Jackman, told Checkpoint tonight is a good opportunity for the council and the District Health Board to explain what has happened to residents.
Council have been working, I know, feverishly to work out what the problem is, where it went wrong in terms of contamination, and what now needs to be addressed in order to put things right and get the community back on its feet again.
A Havelock North businessman, Sam Jackman. An Auckland principal whose school will have to teach new entrants in the staff room next term says the city's housing crisis is to blame for the overcrowding. Every other available space has already been converted into classrooms at Clendon Park School in Manurewa. Anusha Bradley reports.
The school's library, technology room, whare and kitchen have already become classrooms, and 35 new entrants due to start next term will be put in the staff room. The principal, Sue Dawson, says the pressure stems from overcrowding in the community, with multiple families living in a single house, all enrolling their children at the school. The Ministry of Education says 3 temporary classrooms will be in place by April next year, and 6 new ones will be built in the next couple of years. It's also looking at options to provide more room by the end of this year. Ko Anusha Bradley tēnei.
A cancer patient given just 2 days to live 5 months ago is calling on Pharmac to publicly fund Keytruda for cancers other than melanoma. Len Penne, who has mesothelioma, was told in April chemotherapy wasn't working and his only other option was Keytruda. He was given 2 days to live, but 5 months later his tumours have shrunk significantly and he's back at work. Mr Penne says he's spent $8,500 of his own money funding the drug, but Pharmac should step up and pay for it instead. He says after taking the drug once, he felt better.
He stuck me through a scan that showed 61% of shrinkage, and I've gone on from there. I feel good. There's no pain. I've had 7 lots of Keytruda, and I have 1 more to go, and then I'm going to stop because they don't actually know the reaction to this because I'm the only one that's on it in New Zealand.
A cancer patient, Len Penne. The Commerce Commission has reprimanded 9 power companies over unfair contracts with customers. It says Contact, Genesis, Mercury, Meridian, Nova, PowerShop, Pulse, Trustpower and the Lines Company devised contracts that tilted the balance of power towards themselves. Several of them gave themselves the right to unilaterally determine when a contract with a customer had been breached. Other unacceptable practices included limiting a company's liability to customers but not vice versa, and retaining the right to unilaterally vary the price or terms of a contract. A senior commission lawyer, Ben Hamlin, says a total of 59 clauses were found to be potentially unfair.
Unless there's a really good reason for having a clause like that, it's going to be an unfair contract term.
Ben Hamlin says the companies involved have all changed their rules or undertaken to do so. 2 new charter schools announced today will target Māori teenagers in Hamilton and Napier. The government has approved the schools, which will open next year with about 160 students between them. More from our education correspondent John Gerritsen.
The Napier School, Te Aratika Academy, is being set up by a local civil construction firm concerned by the number of poorly educated young men coming to it for jobs. It will be a single-sex school for boys in years 11 to 13 and expects an opening roll of 67 students and a maximum of 200 by 2019. The Hamilton School, Te Kopuku High, aims to provide Māori-centred schooling for teenagers who have not had a Māori immersion education in Kohanga-reo and Kura Kaupapa. It's hoping to open with 90 students and grow to 300 by 2021. The 2 schools will bring the number of charter schools to 10 next year. This is John Gerritsen.
The man who shot and killed John Lennon nearly 36 years ago has been denied parole for the 9th time. The New York Board of Parole says releasing Mark Chapman would be incompatible with the welfare of society and he'll remain in a maximum security prison near Buffalo. Chapman, who's 61 now, was sentenced to between 20 years and life after pleading guilty to murder in 1981. His next parole hearing is in 2 years away. In sport, the New Zealand cricketers face a daunting task to save the second test against South Africa on a deteriorating wicket in Pretoria. The hosts will start day 4 on 105 for 6 in their second innings, leading by 372. Day 4 gets underway at 8 o'clock. Meanwhile, the controversial pink ball will feature in first-class matches here this summer, with several day-night fixtures scheduled in March as part of the domestic season. New Zealand plays its inaugural pink ball home test against England in 2018. The New Zealand Breakers' latest signing, 24-year-old American import Akil Mitchell, says he's ready to make his mark on the basketball court down under. Mitchell, a forward who played at the University of Virginia, says he's serious about winning an ANBL title.
This is a team that prides itself on winning and that prides itself on great character, and those are 2 things that you can never go wrong with. So, if we keep our head to the grind this year, then I see this, just propelling me a little bit further.
Akil Mitchell's signing completes the Breakers roster for the next season, which tips off in early October. Novak Djokovic has advanced to the second round of the US Tennis Open, but new concerns about the defending champion's fitness were raised during his 4-set win over Poland's Jerzy Janowicz. And the former All Black Leon McDonald is joining his former Super Rugby side, the Crusaders, as an assistant coach. That's the news.
Tonight on Nights, the canine-powered odysseys of Maria Grace. Dog sled races are her thing. From Alaska to Svalbard, she likes to keep her life on ice. We've got part 2 of our window on the world of cruise ships. Maybe they're the solution to sea level rise. We could just all settle on boats. And this week's pundit, the largely libertarian Eric Crampton, has interest-free student loans in his sights on Nights with me, Brian Crump, after the news at 7 on RNZ National.
Met Service weather through to midnight tomorrow. Northland, a few showers, mostly fine tomorrow. Auckland to Wellington, including Coromandel, Bay of Plenty in the central high country, fine apart from areas of low cloud or fog inland tomorrow morning. Gisborne to Wairarapa, cloudy periods with isolated showers, clearing south of Wairoa tomorrow morning and elsewhere in the afternoon. Nelson, Marlborough and Canterbury, also central and North Otago, fine apart from cloudy areas morning and night. Dunedin, Clutha and Southland apart from Stewart Island, cloudy periods and a few showers retreating to the south coast tonight, then clearing tomorrow morning. Stewart Island and Fiordland, cloudy periods and a few showers. Bulla and Westland, cloudy periods tomorrow with isolated showers, and the Chatham Islands, cloudy periods. It's 6:08.
Thanks very much indeed, Katrina. Let's go back to that public meeting just outside Havelock North. It comes on the day the Hawke's Bay District Health Board has confirmed 5,198 people, so 5,200 people, have fallen sick with the gastro bug. It's slightly more than a third of the town's population. If you're watching on Freeview Channel 50, about 200 people are at the meeting. There's an extensive lineup of speakers. It was opened by Lawrence Ewell, who is, of course, the Hastings District Mayor. He apologised to the people for the contamination. Our reporter Alex Ashton is there and is joining us now live. Alex, who's been speaking?
Hello, John. As you say, so Lawrence Ewell opened and he did apologise. He basically said it's the council's job, they're tasked with providing clean water. And in this case, regardless of how it happened or what happened, they failed to do that. So he apologised, but then he also made it really clear that they still don't know what actually caused this. They don't know the source yet. So he said that, and then it was the DHB. So Kevin Snee has provided sort of a timeline, a run-through of how this whole thing's played out. And then as I've just stepped out to talk to you, the regional council, Liz Lambert, who's the acting CEO, she's just stepped up to talk.
OK, what's been the reaction from the crowd? Have they been angry, courteous, silent? How are they listening to all of this stuff?
Well, quiet at the moment, just listening. I mean, it's absolutely packed. There's probably a couple of hundred people in there. And when they were walking in, the main thing was people want answers. Unfortunately, a lot of them are going to be disappointed because, as Lawrence Ewell said, that they don't know what happened yet. But quiet at the moment. The thing is, they're opening to questions after they've all spoken. So there's quite a few people here. So I don't know how late the meeting's planned to go, but it could be a while if there's a few people with some things they want to ask.
Alex, you've been speaking to people in the community about their take on all of this, right?
Yeah, and it's sort of split between people that want someone to blame and say this should never have happened and somebody is at fault, but also people that say it's happened and we just need to move on. Now, I did speak to some people on the street today, and here's what some of them had to say.
Well, the reason I wouldn't is because I don't think it's personally, as far as you're concerned, I think they've done the best that they could do under the circumstances. Each week you get something new revelation on what happened. So they said it was a faulty reading the Monday prior to. They told us about it. Okay, now who's at fault there?
No, not really. No, we just want to get to the bottom of the problem. You can't blame anyone personally. No, it wouldn't at all.
So from a council point of view, it's been handled pretty well, do you think?
I think it could have been looked into more deeply, if anything.
But not enough to change the way you'd vote?
No, not at all.
With the way that this water contamination's played out over the last few weeks,
yeah,
would that affect or change how you'd vote in local body elections?
Yes.
In what way?
Mayor not doing the job he should have been doing or should have been informed earlier.
Absolutely, yes. Well, you'd just be questioning whether they're doing their job correctly with the bores, obviously not being up to scratch, and they should have been checked a long time ago. Something should have been done about it.
All right,
Live
so
shot.
you can hear the...
Sorry, Alex. So, I was just looking at the live shot as those people were speaking. So that was a reaction from the streets of Havelock North. I was looking at the live shot behind the speaker now, and it says in big writing, investigations continue. This is just ongoing and ongoing and ongoing. And there's another meeting too, isn't there?
Yeah, so this is the first of two. So they've tried to arrange it so as many people can get here as want to. And as you can see by tonight, there's definitely a lot of people with a lot of questions. So, so there's first one tonight, and there'll be another one tomorrow.
And they are taking questions from the floor after all the speakers are finished. Gosh, that'll be fascinating. Alex Ashton, who is live at the meeting in Havelock North. Thank you so much, Alex. Christchurch has been told it's sitting on a time bomb with the poor quality of its water, and people are lucky they haven't been ill like those in Havelock North. So far, none of the 125 cases of E. coli contamination reported in the past 4 years in the city have resulted in sickness. Wells in the northwest of the city are shallow and, according to Drinking Water Standards New Zealand, present an unsatisfactory risk. Here's our Christchurch local government reporter, Conan Young.
The Christchurch City Council is considering fast-tracking work to better protect drinking water from the risk of contamination. The proposal is contained in a staff report going to councillors this week, which reveals shallow aquifers providing drinking water to 80,000 residents present an unsatisfactory risk. Like Havelock North, where more than 5,000 have fallen sick, Christchurch's drinking water is untreated. The North Canterbury Fish and Game Manager, Rod Cullinane, says it's just a matter of time before the same thing happens there.
To be perfectly honest, I think we're sitting on a bit of a time bomb here. It's happened before, as we know, in the outlying areas of Christchurch City, and we must act urgently to ensure that we don't have a repeat of what we have seen up at Hawke's Bay in recent times.
The council has been drilling deeper wells since 2012, but following the events in Havelock North is now considering accelerating the $16 million project and getting the work done in 2017, a year ahead of schedule. Aaron Kewen is a former city councillor and candidate in this year's elections in the northwestern ward of Herwood. He says the 6 years the council has set aside for digging deeper wells is too long.
You can muck people around on roads and rubbish and sewage and, in our stormwater clearance. You can muck people around on that, so you cannot muck them around on fresh drinking water. New Zealand's been taught a lesson now in Havelock North, and I think that's the first time of many. It's just unacceptable.
Rod Cullinane, who is also a candidate for this year's regional council elections, says deeper wells will only delay the inevitable. He's calling on the regional council, ECAN, to put an immediate stop to further intensification of dairy farming in Canterbury, which he says poses by far the greatest threat to the city's drinking water.
Until such time as that issue is dealt with, I think we're going to have an ongoing problem with having a reliable and clean, uncontaminated water supply. Shifting the bores from one area to another or making them deeper is not dealing with the issue.
Councillor Pauline Cotter represents North West Christchurch and also sits on the committee that will consider the contamination risk report. She will be urging staff to speed up work on the aquifers so her city doesn't become the next Havelock North.
Well, it's already budgeted for, I think it's 2018. Yes, if we have agreement round the table and if we can find the money by pinching it from somewhere else. So that's how we would do it. But we've already made our water quality one of our top priorities, so we do need to honour that. And if we have to bring it forward, we'll have to find the money somewhere to do that.
Here's what some of those spoken to in the northwest of Christchurch had to say about the issue.
Well, we've got to have good water, so the only answer is to go deeper.
I've seen it where I've come from in Ireland, a lot of issues with E. coli in the water, with runoff from agriculture and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, I've got 2 young kids at home, and I don't want them falling ill.
It's a worry to everybody now. I think I'm thinking along the lines of the whole dairy concern, whether that's the cause of it, and everyone's aware of the fact that dairy's sort of everywhere now.
A report on the risk posed to the city's drinking water will go to a council committee on Thursday. In Ototahi for Checkpoint, ko Conan Young tēnei.
In Auckland, the police deny a large brawl between school students outside a KFC in Mangere could have been prevented. The brawl, involving about 80 students and some adults, erupted outside the restaurant on Massey Road late yesterday afternoon. A witness told RNZ News he doesn't believe the fight would have escalated if the police who first attended the incident had taken it more seriously. Our police reporter Carla Penman has more.
Roger Fowler, who's the director of the Mangere East Community Centre, says he saw a large group of students gather at Walter Massey Park across the road from the KFC.
Our staff alerted the police, and after a little while the police car did turn up and had a look and took off again. which we were a little bit astounded by, because we definitely feel that this incident could have been easily nipped in the bud.
About 45 minutes later, Roger Fowler says the gathering grew bigger.
There was a bit of a skirmish with only a handful of these youngsters, probably 4 or 5. But by this stage, a congregation or a gathering of probably about 100. And things quickly got out of hand, and with a big audience, a bit of bravado and a bit of yelling to and fro, and pushing and shoving turns into a couple of punches.
Mr Fowler says it then spilled out onto the other side of the road and into the KFC.
Prior to that, there'd been no evidence that I could see, and I've corroborated this with others, of any weapons, and there certainly wasn't brawling involving hundreds of youngsters. At any stage, there was only a very small handful of people involved in any physical altercation.
He says it was overkill when 13 police cars did eventually turn up. The police area commander inspector Jason Hewitt told media this afternoon that police were called out earlier that afternoon.
There was some concerns raised at the number of kids in the street at that time, but then we have to remember it's after school on a school day, and there was lots of kids in the streets at that time heading home. So a unit was dispatched. There was no fighting at that point. A number of groups were spoken to, and then there was nothing more that could be done at that time.
He says they believe the fight began with just 2 people and escalated into a brawl.
So we've got 2 17-year-olds that have been arrested and put before the district court. They're facing a number of charges, including disorderly behaviour, possession of offensive weapons, resisting arrest. And we now have 3 15-year-olds who have been referred to youth aid.
He says the police have now increased their presence in the area and around local schools.
I want to reassure the community that we take this sort of behaviour very seriously. It is utterly appalling behaviour when a group of young people get into a serious fight like this, where weapons are involved, and really it's just by the grace of God that no one was seriously injured as a result.
Inspector Hewitt says they've spoken to 3 schools so far, but still aren't sure how many were involved. The principal of Southern Cross campus, Robin Staples, says he doesn't know how many of his students took part.
When we talk to police further, we'll investigate, but it will be about individual students being accountable for their actions, and if any of them are brought to school into disrepute, then they'll be answering to the Board of Trustees.
He says those students could be expelled. The police are urging any witnesses who might have filmed what took place to pass on their footage. KFC says it's helping the police with their investigations and that counselling has been offered to its staff caught up in the brawl. In Auckland for Checkpoint, ko Carla Penman tēnei.
Earlier in Checkpoint, in fact, roughly an hour ago, we spoke to Len, who was diagnosed with mesothelioma, which is an asbestos-caused cancer. He was told he was dying. In fact, he was told he had days to live. He tried Keytruda. He is now very much alive and, in fact, returning to work. But the Keytruda is not being funded by Pharmac because they only fund it for metastasised melanoma cancers, not for asbestos cancers. Well, Catherine Adams, who is listening, she says, via the marvels of RNZ's app, Catherine's travelling and she's listening, and lovely to have you with us, Catherine, wherever in the world you are, asks, my question as a long-time health professional is, when did mesothelioma stop being the one medical condition funded by ACC, as it's always accidentally acquired? I'd like that question answered by ACC. Catherine, we think that's a hell of a good question. We will get on to ACC and have an answer for you, hopefully, tomorrow night. I'm just going to clear my throat. Excuse me. Thank you very much. It's 21 and a half minutes past 6. Thank you for your feedback, by the way. Protesters lit fire on the streets of Sao Paulo in support of Brazil's suspended president, Dilma Rousseff, who, of course, is facing an impeachment trial. Vanessa Johnson from Reuters reports.
Amid flames and signs calling for the ouster of Brazil's interim president, Michel Temer, protesters on the streets of Sao Paulo take a stand against the impeachment trial of suspended President Dilma Rousseff. Appearing before the Senate Monday, Rousseff made a last-ditch effort to defend herself against charges she broke budgetary laws, declaring her innocence and accusing conservative opponents of plotting to protect elite interests. But despite cries from her supporters, Rousseff is expected to become the first Brazilian leader in more than 20 years to be dismissed from office. when the Senate makes its ruling by Wednesday.
That report from Reuters. At about 5:30 this evening, I spoke to Eliza McCartney. Actually, I did so earlier today at her school, Belmont, her former school, Belmont Intermediate in Takapuna. She is an absolutely magic person to interview, and she was inspirational to the kids at her former school who just hung on every word this morning. Well, the Olympic bronze medalist is obviously home, enjoying being home, and even though she touched down at 4:30 this morning, before she actually went home, she ducked into her old school to speak to the kids. There were lots of reporters there, including RNZ's Sarah Robson.
Staff and kids, would you join with me in welcoming the Olympic bronze medalist in the women's pole vault and old girl of Belmont Intermediate School, Eliza McCartney?
With her bronze medal around her neck, Eliza McCartney was given a hero's welcome when she walked into Belmont Intermediate School Hall. Just a few months ago, she would never have dreamed that her success at Rio would have made her a household name.
It's a funny thing. It's quite different from when I left New Zealand. It's changed a little bit, but it's really nice, and the support is just overwhelming. It's a good change. I can't complain.
McCartney was unfazed at finding herself mobbed by students wanting to touch her medal and pose for photos.
It's lovely when it's kids though, because they're so excited and they just want to see your medal and say hi to you, and it's really cool that they're so excited and getting behind New Zealand sports people.
And the students themselves were pretty impressed.
It was pretty amazing and inspiring because a bronze medal is such a big thing.
Yeah, it's really cool to think about how she came from such a small area and did such great things. It's really inspiring for us as all of us play different sports.
Well, Eliza really showed that you can do that if you pursue with your dreams, so it's inspired me.
The principal of Belmont Intermediate, Nick Hill, says it's not often you have an Olympian old girl pay a visit.
And it's particularly unique for us because she's from Devonport, she grew up in Devonport, and she's just captured a nation really. So it's fantastic for us to have her back here as soon as she gets in the country. It's quite unique.
Nick Hill says he hopes some of McCartney's lessons about hard work rub off on his students. For McCartney's part, she said she didn't expect her hard work to pay off so soon. Her aim was a podium finish in Tokyo in 2020.
It's pretty incredible. It's just not what I was expecting, and it's just so special as well, the fact that I went out there just to do my best and my best got me a medal.
And McCartney says she hasn't yet decided on the all-important question of where she'll keep her medal.
Yeah, I don't know. I have got my medals in my room already, so I guess I don't know if I haven't thought maybe it could go with them, maybe it should have its own little spot. I'm not sure yet.
Despite her Olympic success, McCartney says she doesn't think she's hit her peak yet and thinks she still has a lot to learn. The World Championships are on the horizon in 2017, and of course medal expectations will be high when the Tokyo Olympics roll around.
It's not out of the question, I don't know, we'll see how it goes. It's another 4 years away and anything could happen. But women's pole vault is just growing very quickly, and there's a lot of competitive young girls as well, so it'll be very interesting. I think it'll be a huge event, women's pole vault in Tokyo. I think there's a lot of time for people to get very good.
But for now, McCartney is putting her feet up for 3 weeks before she gets back into her early morning starts and training routine. For Checkpoint, Sarah Robson.
So, Eliza McCartney inspiring young New Zealanders, so too silver medal winning women's sevens rugby team who are getting a rousing reception wherever they go as part of their 7 cities in 7 days tour of the country. The Sevens captain Sarah Gross and winger Portia Woodman spoke to reporter Kate Pereira Garcia about the lovely reception they're getting.
I think it's probably one of the best responses we've had in a long time, and I think no doubt it's because of the silver medal, but I think it's our mission, it's our team mission, is to inspire the younger girls that rugby is an awesome sport and it's a career path now, and it's an awesome sport to play, so it's awesome, yeah. Oh my gosh. awesome.
Oh gosh. She's like my idol. Portia's like my idol.
Portia's your idol?
Yeah. It's so good, yeah. And,
what about everyone else? Who's your favourite players?
I like Portia and Niall. Yeah. And Kayla.
Yeah. Did you watch all the games?
Yeah. Especially the fun. Yeah. During school. And maths
So how big a change have you noticed post-Olympics, and whether it's silverware, literally, around the necks, or whether it's just that it was on TV. How big a change has there been in terms of attention?
I think it was both the silverware and just our exposure on the TV. We don't get a lot of that over our World Series, and I suppose getting New Zealanders watching us is a big thing for us, and being able to bring home a silver medal for people to actually see is hopefully inspiring them to think, okay, women actually are quite good at rugby, and we can bring something home for New Zealand for it.
Totally. What was it like being in Rio and being at the Olympics?
It was indescribable, just to be in that atmosphere. We don't usually get a big crowd at our games when we're on the World Series, and to get there and we have this big black crowd on the side and they're cheering for us and they're all our whānau, let alone the rest of the stadium that's Brazil, like they're all sorts of countries. It was a huge environment, and then the rest of the Olympics, because we stayed on till the end, was huge, and we got to watch all sorts of different sports. We really enjoyed it, and we made the most of every opportunity.
You guys got a lot of response for how you carried yourselves, I guess, after that final.
Yeah, I've watched it. I've watched the highlights package and saw the end and didn't realise how much of a blubbering mess I was. And I think hopefully people realise that it's more of just how much it means to us, and we're no doubt happy and stoked to have the silver, but we worked 4 years to go for that gold, and that's all those tears were, and that haka was for our whānau back home and at the stadium.
Yeah, I think for us there was slight disappointment straight after the game. Like Portia said, we'd gone there to win a gold medal, and at the end of it we did fall a little bit short, but looking back it's really tough to compete at the Olympics, and to even win a silver medal is really hard. So we're pretty stoked and pretty honoured to be bringing back this silver medal, and it's just nice that we've got this opportunity to actually take it around New Zealand and show the young girls that it's possible.
1, 2, 3. I got it. Oh.
Sarah and Portia were speaking to Kate Pereira Garcia. Just before we go tonight, let's go back live to Havelock North. The meeting has been underway for about an hour. As you can see, if you're watching, they're now taking questions from the floor. This is the part of the meeting where the public have their say. Previously, Hastings Meal Iron Fuel has apologised for the crisis. The crowd has been told it's unlikely contamination came from the Tukituki River. The boil water notice will be lifted imminently. Tests will begin early next week to focus on possible contaminants in paddocks, a nearby stream and chambers near the water bores. That's some of what's been learnt so far. Morning Report will have more tomorrow morning, and we'll be back in Havelock North tomorrow night on Checkpoint. Thank you for being with us. Have a very good evening indeed.
RNZ News headlines at 6:30. A public meeting on the Havelock North Kampala-Bagda emergency has been told the town's boil water notice will be lifted imminently. A cancer patient who's spending $8,500 every 3 weeks on Keytruda is calling on Pharmac to fund the drug for cancers other than melanoma. Len Penny, who has mesothelioma, was told in April chemotherapy wasn't working and his only other option was Keytruda. He was given 2 days to live, but 5 months later his tumours have shrunk significantly and he's back at work. 9 power companies have been reprimanded over unfair contracts with customers. The Commerce Commission says Contact, Genesis, Mercury, Meridian, Nova, PowerShop, Pulse, Trust Power and the Lines Company devised contracts that tilted the balance of power towards themselves. An Auckland principal whose school will have to teach new entrants in its